Good morning, my magnificent ones. I'm Sue Paulson, your magnificence mentor, and welcome to Tea with Sue. Wow, I do this typically every Friday. The weeks just seem to go by in a heartbeat, and it seems as if coming out of the pandemic, things are heating up. There's lots more activities, there's lots going on, and I'm not quite ramped up for that yet, but I'm getting there little by little. Today, I wanted us to explore the whole territory of the inner frontier. So I'm a Star Trek fan from a way back, and I always remember that the mission of Star Trek to boldly go where no one has ever gone before. Well, of course, they were talking about outer space. They were talking about what's out there beyond the stars or amidst the stars or whatever. And of course, in the fantasy of the Star Trek world, they had the ability to do that. They had all of the power and machines and vessels and so on that could just help them explore that. Well, here on planet Earth, in what we believe is our reality, our day-to-day dealings and workings and all of the things that go on with us, it's interesting that we too are so focused on the world around us, on our outer world, on what's going on, whether it's what's going on the news, what's going on in our work, what's going on with our families. It doesn't matter. There's lots of avenues to turn our attention to, and we do. Well, and of course, out there in the big wide world, the general cultural norm or the sense of the attitude of the populations in general, there's this abiding theme of here's what it takes to get ahead and be happy. So of course, money plays a crucial role right around the world. It's a means of exchange. It's how we trade goods and services. And of course, the notion is that the more money you have, well, not only the better off will you be, but the happier you're going to be. Well, I've become acquainted with lots of people who have lots of money who are not happy. And you go, well, what's the deal here? I followed all the rules. I did what was necessary to propel myself from wherever I was to wherever I thought I needed to be in order to get all the goodies and ultimately be happy. But that didn't do it for me. That just leaves me kind of flat, and in fact can turn into a certain level of depression when you realize that all that striving was kind of for naught. Well, why is that? Well, I've come to understand that and learned over time that it's the inner frontier that is at the root of all of it. It's our inner being, our inner game that we want to explore and play. It's about, so what's inside that we don't really see and feel as if we can't touch it, taste it. That's not tangible. It's a very intangible thing. Well, deep inside us is something we could call spirit, our higher self, our soul, whatever that is that we, each of us has and came with when we came to planet Earth. That part of us is this magnificent, shining facet of total wonderfulness. I'm not even sure that's a word, but that's my word today. It's beyond anything we can even imagine, and yet it's the core of us. It is us. Well, it's interesting that core of us has no shape and form as such. It's almost as if it's part of the ether. You can't see it. Sometimes you can intuitively feel it, but it doesn't require gravity. It doesn't require a body. It doesn't require a brain. It just is. It's part of the all that is. It's part of. I like to liken it to if you think of a diamond this big, and there are facets, and you look at a diamond and you see all these different facets in the way that it's cut, and each one of them shines. Well, if this diamond represented God in the universe, we are facets of that. We are an essential part of creation that has our own shining beacon of light that is glowing inside us. So, and it glows brighter the more you get to know it and the more you pay attention to it. It's always there, but sometimes it fades to a little ember because there's so much attention paid to what's going on outside of us, what we're doing in the big wide world, not what we're doing internally. So I find it really fascinating. So this is where not many go, because it takes us a certain amount of courage to go inside and say, well, who am I really? Now, fear comes into this, right? And the ego is likely to say, nee, don't go there, because you might not like what you find. If you examine yourself too closely, you might not like what you find in there. There's probably going to be dragons and monsters that in the closet that you never imagined. Don't open that door. Don't open that door. That's our ego, right? Because it's most focused on our survival, and it knows how to do that in a very clear and practiced way, because it's done it for years. Well, okay, ego, go on vacation for a little bit here. I want to explore who I really am inside me. Is there more? Well, I was really fortunate that in my early 20s, I had an opportunity to do just that, to explore what was going on inside. There was as part of this workshop that I was involved in, there was a process that was called active meditation. It wasn't the Eastern form of meditation where you focus on emptying your mind and don't think about anything. That's difficult if you're not brought up to that way of meditating. And so they proposed an active form where you really engaged your imagination. And what's imagination? Well, all it is bringing images to mind that with your eyes closed. So, well, of course, with your eyes closed, because you know what a lot of things look like from your eyes being open. And then when you close them, it isn't difficult to bring to mind those images. So a peaceful scene from nature, a waterfall, the beach, the birds chirping in the trees, rocks, grass, all of that. So it's not difficult to imagine that. So in this learning process to access this inner self, this inner being, where the premise was, that's where the goodies are. If you want power and strength in your life, that's where you draw it from. And it's interesting that is where we draw it from, whether we realize it or not. I just had been unaware that there was any place other than my day-to-day physical energy that I drew strength from, and my ability to think about things and make decisions and take action, all of those sorts of, that's all I knew about where my power came from. And so it was intriguing to me to come to understand that, oh, there's a part of you that you haven't accessed on a conscious level that you didn't know you had, that you could go to. Well, of course, in those days, there weren't that many books that would steer you in that direction. There weren't many teachers who could help. So this was really uncharted territory. And I knew very few people who even had a glimmer of that idea, never mind wanted to pursue that. But I dived in just with both feet. And what I discovered was that core, was that inner part of me that is so, so powerful. In fact, when I began to understand how powerful it was, it kind of freaked me out. And I'm thinking, whoa, this is a little beyond what I'm used to. And I wasn't too sure how to deal with it in the everyday world, because it almost seemed like cheating. It almost seemed as if, well, I'm accessing this power and everybody else is doing it the ordinary way. And, this is like a superpower. What do I do with it? And you see on TV these and movies, all these shows about people who, for some wild and crazy reason, have a superpower, and then they, the Flash and so on, and then they struggle. Well, what do I do with this? Because it's beyond anything that I have ever imagined before. And I'm still not too sure that I'm that tapped into how much power that really is. And do I want that much power? Well, it's a creative endeavor. And out of tapping into that power certainly can come the more ease in working on planet Earth, in your physical body. More joy. Well, that's to me where that well of joy comes from, is deep down within, that sense of happiness. You can draw tremendous courage from that well, because you realize that when you're there, you're not alone, because other energies, other spiritual beings are right there with you. They're there with you in that etheric realm that we can't taste and touch, but we can kind of sense it, and we can kind of feel it. And the more we develop that energy, the more we develop that connection. The connection's always there. The connection is never broken. It's just that like a muscle that requires some exercising, it got weak from the time you were born, and listened to all these messages from authority figures and everybody else in your life that told you, well, actually, you're not enough, and you're really going to have to work hard to improve in this area, this area, this area, and this area. All those messages that we were bombarded with, and the programming, oh, life is tough. You're going to have to work really hard for whatever you get. And, well, if you pick that, you're going to starve. So you better pick something that makes you lots of money, even if you hate it. And so there's this barrage of information that for the most part isn't necessarily true, but it seems real, it feels real, so it overshadows, it overtakes the essence of who we really are. So it took me a while to realize over time that what I was really doing from my 20s till now has been clearing this whole bramble of thorns and bushes and rocks that are in my way, of all of that stuff that I learned from my mother's knee, clearing that path to get back to the essence of me, to say, whoa, who is she, and what's she like, and what can she do, and what does she desire, and all of those kinds of things, which is beyond who I am in human form, because all of us are more than that. So when I talk about the magnificence of each one of us, I'm talking about that, and the way we come into communion with that, the way we can connect with that is in a variety of ways, for sure. The first thing is to set the intention. I want to know more about who I am really, who I am internally. What is that magnificent part of me? And have I ever connected with it at all? Well, if you think about it, there have been times in your past when maybe you got the chills about an idea that just lit you on fire. Well, and people call them goosebumps, and other people call them God bumps. Like there's a resonance with the universe. Sometimes it's an intuitive sense of, well, something's not quite right. And so instead of moving forward, you pull back instantly, only to realize that if you had gone forward, game over, right? So we all get these bits that signal that there's something else going on that we never imagined before, or maybe we wanted to imagine it, but we had no idea how. So there's probably an infinite number of ways that you can tap into that core of you, that source of you. I'll give you a few ways that have worked for me, and I suspect there's just a gazillion more out there that you can access. But it does start with intention. It starts with, okay, I'm really done with the superficiality and the very uncertain nature of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. I want something that's solid, that I can count on, that's always there. What is that? How do I access that? How do I strengthen my connection to that? So I've already talked about meditation is one way that you can do that. You can move into stilling the mind, to allowing your heart center to open up. It can be done through body work, for sure, because sometimes with body work, we're getting rid of what is not serving us, whether it's pain in the body or disease of some sort or whatever. It's through the elimination of that we come closer and closer to that. So anybody who does energy work, if you've ever experienced any of that, and I have quite a bit, it's astounding to me how that can pull you right into your core. Sound can do that. If you've ever been in an arena where they've worked with crystal bowls or metal bowls and made sounds with that, well, we're very attuned in our bodies to have that heightened. So music and sounds can transport us to that place, which feels like it's coming from outside, but it isn't really. It's an inner vibration that you're connecting with. So what else? Interestingly, dreaming and dreams can do that. So dreaming about what you most desire, what your heart's desire is, beyond. And one way of doing that is it's an interesting step down process where you say, well, I really desire $1 million, let's say. Well, why do you want that? Well, and you ask the question, well, because it can buy me all kinds of things that I want. Okay, well, why is that important? Well, because, and then you keep asking until you get to the nugget of that desire. Like, is it the money that you desire? Well, for me, money equals freedom. And so, well, can I have freedom without money? Yes, I can. It's a mindset, right? It's something, and it comes from my heart. If I feel that I can soar regardless of whether I have money or not, I don't really need the money. Okay, it'd be nice to have it, but it's not essential to my core being. And it might, we consider it essential in getting along on our day-to-day basis, but the root of that is, how do I access my own freedom? What is it that's holding me down? What is not enabling me to soar? What is that? So over time, I have created, through a visualization process, created a place that I go that is a sacred place for me, that enables me to feel my limitlessness. And I've done it often enough that it's just a given. The interesting thing is the core of it started way back when I was doing this personal growth workshop, and we were taught how to do spoon bending. Now, okay, I have a little spoon here. So what we were shown was, this is not in fact a rigid object. It's made up of, and this goes back to science and physics and that realm that I was never all that good at, quite honestly. But I was willing to suspend my disbelief in what we were telling me, because when I look at this spoon and I feel it, it feels pretty solid, and it's very useful as a solid object. It wouldn't be that useful if it flopped around like spaghetti. However, what they were proposing as just a mind-twisting exercise was to say, well, what if you were in tune with the spoon from the perspective that it is not in fact a rigid object. It's filled with atoms and molecules and all those bits that are moving in a certain way, and you just want to shift them and suggest that they move in a different way. So people would twist the, I'm not going to destroy my spoon here in front of you, but they would twist the bowl when they worked at, and they said, okay, just gently massage the base of the spoon here, the thinner part, and just imagine that it's just like licorice or cooked spaghetti that just is going to flop. And you test it every once in a while. That was the process that they took us through. And this was after 5 days of intensive training that we had this little exercise. So we were well tapped into that inner core, and didn't have too much difficulty suspending our belief about this being a solid object. And it was so fascinating that one by one, the people in the group would bend their spoons, and they'd either, bend them down, or they'd twist the bowl. And in fact, if they twisted too much, the metal got so thin, it just snapped off. And it was a fascinating process to me. And I was in awe of how this worked. And I couldn't disbelieve what I was seeing. The trouble was I couldn't do it. And eventually, when I was teaching this workshop, I still couldn't bend the spoon. So I'd need to bring in graduates who knew how to do the spoon bending, who had figured it out and connected in that way, and demonstrate for the class, because I couldn't do it. Well, this bugged me because I thought, well, why can't I do it? What is in my way? What is stopping me from doing this? Because I believe that it's possible. Well, why isn't it possible for me? And what I tapped into finally was the program I have about waste, and the idea of destroying a spoon by twisting the bowl, and then it's not useful as a spoon anymore, did not sit well with me. I have these old tapes, right? And so as soon as I thought about that, and that came to my, obviously spirit said, okay, Sue, you've struggled with this long enough. Here's the answer. Thank you. Thank you. Well, as soon as I tapped into that, I realized that, well, yeah, if I just bent it down, then could I bend it back and then it would still be a useful spoon? Well, yeah, of course. Well, if it'll bend one way, it'll bend back. So that's what I focused on. And lo and behold, I bent the spoon. Well, and I bent it back. So it still, there's a little kind of a crook in the middle, but it astonished me how easy it was when I got it, when the everything lined up and I got it. I'm going, oh. Well, spoon bending in and of itself is not what I would consider to be the most necessarily practical thing in the world. But what it does is it seeds in our minds, well, if that's possible, what else is possible? Could I use that same energy to adjust the molecular structure or the atomic structure or whatever, so that I could heal my body faster, better, whatever? Could I work with my car and assist it in starting when it's minus 30 and it doesn't seem to want to go anywhere? Could I do that? So I began experimenting with a variety of ways, and oh, was I shocked at and thrilled really at how well that process worked, at how many more things that I could do that had been seemingly impossible. You can't do that. And I did. And I'm going, whoa, that's pretty, it was kind of freaky, actually. Well, that's the core of us. That is that essence that is just there for us at all times. It never lets us down. But sometimes we have to ask. Sometimes we need to set our intentions and put out our heart's desire for that to work for us as much as it wants to. I mean, it wants you to wake up. Like, it's wake up, smell the coffee, we're here. And and I know the wildness of it all, because when I first tapped into it in my 20s, and it felt too big for me, like I found reasons to not do it because it was so big, and it seemed as if, when I didn't know anybody else who was living that way on a day-to-day basis, it seemed as if it was cheating, that well, I would have an advantage over everybody else, and that wasn't right. And so I turned away from it for years, but I always accessed it when I was most desperate. And it always came through for me. I was always connected to God and the universe. And when I was in my most despairing moments, there was this balm of peace that would come over me, or this assistance in some way that I I couldn't have planned. I couldn't have sorted out. And it just reinforced, oh, so it hasn't gone away. You haven't lost it. It's still there. It's waiting for you. And when you're ready, there was no judgment about it. There was no, well, you can do this or not. It's your choice. You have free will. You're here on planet Earth, free will. Just fill your boots, however that looks to you. You want to do it the long, hard way. That's up to you. It's entirely up to you. If you want a little shortcut or a little more power or whatever, well, you can access this part of you and see what happens. And is it the panacea to all the ills of the world? I don't know. I think it might be. There's a notion in me that if more and more people dived into this and accessed that power, it would change the world, because people would say, whoa, we could be more creative, we could be happier, we could end all of the problems on the planet simply by not only each of us accessing this source, but combining our source energies together and literally moving mountains. I mean, it's highly possible. I hope I live long enough to see that in action, quite honestly. And there's so much, there's been such a shift from the time when I was first learning this in my 70s, not in my 70s, in the 1970s, to now, where there are many people who are teaching these concepts, many people who have written books about these concepts. There's lots of exercises, workshops, you name it. There's no shortage of information out there in how to do this. There's still a small percentage, though, that are doing this. And you can be one. So you're magnificent enough that if this is a path that you want to go, if you want to do this inner journey, it takes some courage, and it's going to mean there's probably going to be some messiness about it along the way. There sure was for me. And there was this start, stop kind of thing where, you know, yeah, I'm going forward. No, I'm going back. Yeah, I'm going forward. No, I'm going back. That's the way we roll. And it was okay. So if you want to, I really invite you over this next week to think about that inner journey, even if you just went inside for 5 minutes a day and said, what would it be like to be limitless? Can I feel that? Can I, in my imagination, when I go to my sacred place, it's like a plateau, a mountain tabletop, and I just spring forward into the atmosphere and fly. And it is the most freeing, glorious feeling that I have ever experienced. And it's right there, you know, right at my fingertips, right at that instant of decision where I say, yes, I need that now. That's important to me. That's a part of me, and it's a glorious, wonderful part. So play with it, my dear ones. See how you go, and I think you'll find that we can be in the world, but not of the world, because there's this inner world, this inner space that is far more potent and far more desirable in the whole scheme of things than what we see right here, right now, every day. Until next week, do have a great weekend. We're into fall now. Fortunately, here in Edmonton, the weather's holding, so I'm looking forward to that crispness in the morning and sunshine during the day, with a delayed snow forecast maybe till November. would be good. So if you're enjoying Tea with Sue, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, Sue Paulson. And there's all the Tea with Sue videos there. You can also download my app, the Magnificence Mentor. It's a free app. And if you become a free member, there's steps on the app on how to do that. Then that opens up even more content, videos, blogs, and so on for you to access whenever you want. So take good care. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on Tea with Sue.